Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and tonight I'm proud to bring you Mythic Gaming with Tim Espy and Zack McAtee. Greetings and welcome, gentlemen. How are you today?
Doing great. Yourself?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm looking forward.
Greetings.
Greetings,
Good evening. Good evening.
and we're going to be moving into a new format, part of it today. But we're going to start with Tim, and then we're going to go to Zach. So, Tim, what is new and exciting in the wide world of gaming, of which level one is a beacon?
Oh yeah, so like I was saying before that there's been a bunch of stuff going on. A bunch of good stuff, which is good. Um last show we were talking about the or the last two shows we were talking about the new robot that we got.
Mhm.
The new card sorting robot. So we've been working with it now for the past, however long it's been, we'll say 6 weeks or so. So we're finding out, how we kind of like to have it sorted and how we like to, sort it ourselves. So now we're kind of re-going through the stuff that's already done and really like fine tuning it to exactly how we like it. Now that we've kind of been living with it for a little bit.
Are people
Um,
curious about it? Have they been coming in to see the machine and watch it operate?
Oh yeah, yeah. So as soon as somebody, yeah, as soon as we show somebody so now when you come into the store, there's an iPad on one of the counters, and that is like our magic inventory now that you can is searchable and you can place orders on this kiosk, and we also have QR codes around on the counters as well that you can scan if you just want to use your phone instead of the kiosk. Um, but yeah, as soon as we tell people that, they're like, "Oh wow, like that must have been a lot of work to do all that." And I was like, "Well, actually," and then I bring them back into the yeah. Have you seen it yet, Hercules? Not yet,
No,
right?
I haven't seen it. My father-in-law, who we visited, is now in a veterans home.
Right.
So
Mm,
we're not in the area as often, and when we are, we have a lot of work to do straightening out his and
yeah.
things like that. So we haven't really had a chance to shop around. But whenever we pass the store on the highway, I always say hi.
Yes. Yes.
Pass.
But yeah, so like, as soon as we say, well, actually, here, come take a look at this, and we show them, they're like, wow, oh my God, exactly like what you would expect. Like, oh my God, how does it work? And there's a million questions, and it's really fun to show it off and talk about it. I actually have a little story that I can tell real quick. Um, so there was I believe it's a husband and wife. I'm going to assume they've been coming together for a while. Um, and they look at some magic cards and some board games and stuff. And they came this past week with another couple. And turns out they were from Washington State, I believe. It was one of the Western states, whether it be Washington or Oregon or I'm pretty sure it was Washington. Um, and the one girl that was there, she actually worked at a card store that is out there. Um, so we were talking, and I was showing her the kiosk and showing her the inventory because she was like, "Oh, actually, like we just ordered a machine." She wasn't sure if it was the same one that we had or if it was like the quote competition one, just the other one that's available. Um, but yeah, so I showed her and I showed her how it worked, and she was like super super stoked on it, and it was just really fun to share the story of somebody that literally across the country, and then we have a connection with this, and me and the boyfriend, we had a connection on a couple other different things, so we ended up following each other on Instagram and stuff. So it was it was a good time. I met some cool people and made new
That's great.
connections and stuff. So that's what the game store is for, right? That's what
Mhm.
all the work and all the it's stressful, of course, running stuff, but having connections like that and making friends like that and just a spur of the moment kind of thing, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, yes, it is, and it's awesome that you made the connection. It's all the way on the other side of the country.
Right. Just super fun, super fun people, super nice. So it was a good time. Um, but yeah, so Yeah, we've been doing that, and like I said, we've changed a couple things around where we when we first did the machine, we decided on the number $2 and up would be the stuff that would be searchable on the kiosk, and then everything else we still have our boxes and stuff that people could go through. But after living with it for a little bit, it seems like we're going to be changing it and opening that up a little bit more. So now anything that is going to be about $1 and up is searchable. So that really opens up much more inventory for the customers for
Yes.
so that they can search and be able to find stuff way easier. And of course that would translate hopefully more into more sales and more stuff coming in and out of the store, which is what you want. You always want the flow in and out,
Uh-huh.
the cash flow. Yeah, so it's really, not even that much more work to have, because the machine it really is something special. It really does most of the work for you. So it's already pretty much done. So, just changing that one number really doesn't change too much, but opens up a lot more for the customers. So that was a nice little change that we're in the process of doing. But yeah, so it's been a hit, and like I said, we're still learning, we're still figuring out some stuff, but it's been a really good asset so far. I can't wait for you to see it. I think you'll be pretty impressed by it.
I can't wait to see it. And it sounds almost magical, or science
You're
fiction.
right. Yeah.
And
Yes.
I'm imagining in a not too far future, there'll be a machine that you could, what do you call it? If you don't have the card in stock, that it'll automatically print you an official card.
Right. Yeah. Imagine. Yeah. You just have the printer right at your right at the back of your shop.
And there you go, they'll have it. If they don't have it in hand when they come in, by the time they leave, they'll have it in hand. Wow, that is
But
great.
yep. But yeah, so along the Magic line, we had the other set that came out that was Modern Horizons 3 that was very popular. Um, but uh but I think one that you will be specifically interested in or think is pretty cool. And Zach, I've been posting a bunch of stuff in the Discord. I don't know if you saw. There's a bunch of birds
Yeah.
in this set. So this new set is called Bloomborough. It's a standard set, so it's just like your quote regular normal Magic expansion, if you will. Um, but this one is very creature focused. And deep down, every Magic player, that's what they love. They love playing their big creatures, or their, in this case, the specific case, they're cute creatures, or they're big scary creatures and stuff. So this set focuses heavily on like mice and rabbits and otters and cute small creatures that help each other out and do a bunch of different things with each other. So the stuff that they've been spoiling has been received very well. They released like a nice like animated trailer that also got posted in the Discord. I think Scott posted that. So yeah, so this set has been very hyped and stuff, and there's been a lot of talk, and so we're hoping that it's going to be pretty popular so far. Like I said, it's been received really well, and this will be also the first set that we have the machine fully ready to go. So with that, we'll have the new cards up and ready to go for people the first day of the set release, instead of having to wait a couple days, or if we can somehow get some stuff together for the release day. But now with the machine, we can have everything ready to go, and and the stuff is there ready for the customers when the set first comes out, which will be really nice and really fun to see the excitement and everything. Because like I said, it's already been building like crazy, so this one should be popular.
It sounds awesome, and people are already signing up for tournaments, I'm imagining.
Oh yeah, yep. We have our sign up sheets out already, and we've been getting phone calls for that. Like I said already, it's at the end of the month, is when we start doing our pre-release events, which is always super fun. We've talked about those before, so this one will be a really good revisit next month. It'll be a good one.
So that's Magic, the Gathering. How about on the Pokemon front? Anything new and exciting happening there?
Yep. So with Pokemon, the new like championship points, series has started. So now the more competitive side is gearing up and is starting for the season, if you will. It's a quarter, or not a quarter, it's a full year that people can build up their points to go to worlds and stuff. Um, but yeah, so now that's up and running. We did our first challenge this was, yeah, on Saturday we did our first challenge of the season, which was really good. Our One of our local players, Matt, came and he ended up going. He went 4 or he went 3-0 at our tournament, and then our friend's store was doing one right after ours. We kind of scheduled it that way so that the players can come to ours and then they can drive to his and then do their tournament over there. And then he ended up going 4-0 at that tournament. So for the weekend, he went up 7-0. So our local player did really well at both tournaments. So we were happy with that. It's always nice when our local people do really well.
And it's great that you're working together with other businesses, that, it's being synergistic instead of, totally competitive and hostile. You know,
Oh
you,
yeah, yeah.
you extend the hand in friendship, and it seems like you're able to do a lot more things.
Oh yeah, yeah. But we work with the few stores that are around us. The one store that I was just referencing before, I would love to, next time I see him in person, I would love to see if he would want to come on. He would be a great person to talk to and pick his brain because he owns a game store out in Bergen County. And his Pokemon crowd is really, 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 really popular, and he's just a super cool dude. Anthony is his name over at the
Yes,
Game Zone.
I met
Yep.
Anthony, and I used to go there. I haven't been there since the pandemic started, but we used to go there fairly often.
Oh yeah, yeah. Anthony is a really, really, really good friend of the store. Um, when we have more time, I'll give you the full story about how Anthony came to us and introduced himself and just was a total class top, just a great, great guy. Just I can't speak, better words about a person. He's super, super cool. But yeah, so it would be great to have on one time and to see he's got a cool backstory and just a really fun guy. Um, but uh but yeah, so yeah, like I said, we try to work with each other. When we're doing our pre-releases, we set hours a little bit later so that the Highlander and Booten, they run theirs in the morning so that their players, when they're done, they can come to ours, and then we all can work together. We don't have to be fighting competition.
Oh,
It's not doesn't have to be like that. We can all work together. So and we all do. Luckily, everybody's on the same page, in our area, which is great.
I remember back in the day witnessing comic book store wars.
Yeah,
It seemed that the different comic book stores, if they were within driving distance of each other, would like be spying on the other store and what they're doing.
yeah, yeah.
It got ridiculous. So I'm glad it's not happening here in the game stores.
Right, right, yeah. So yeah, so that's really nice. But yeah, so then the other big thing that we have coming up that I just started posting about, so we have our Pokemon League Challenge, and then Zach, I'm not sure if it worked the same way back when you were doing a professor and stuff, but you had your league challenges, then you have your league cups. Was that a
I think
thing
so,
back
yeah.
then? Yeah. So the League Cup is the one that we are allowed to do once a quarter. So it's like the big tournament that you can win the most championship points at and stuff. So we scheduled ours for August 3rd. That's the one that we do at the new event space that we have across the street.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so we should have a nice big Pokemon tournament going on. It's Saturday, August 3rd at 11. We have the sign up sheets ready for that, and yeah, that's posted up online and on Pokemon's website and everything. So those are always a really good time, and it's a more serious tournament, but like I said, our local Pokemon scene is really, really really top class. Like in my opinion, they're just a bunch of good people that come, a bunch of families that come out too, a bunch of different age groups. So we got a big diverse crew that comes out.
Oh, that is great. And it will definitely continue to grow. And as you spread out more, so will your kingdom.
Yes, yep. That's the idea. Just just keep spreading the keep spreading everything, and welcoming more people in and getting more people into the hobby. It's always a good thing.
And there's exciting things coming out on the role-playing game front too, I understand.
Yes, yes. So that's what I had a couple questions for you when I was doing a little bit of reading on on the one new book. It came out today.
Wow.
Quest for the Infinite Quest for the Infinite Staircase.
Hmm.
Um, it seems to be like it's like a reworking of a bunch of old modules from way back when D&D first started, because it's now this is the 50th anniversary, I believe, is what the number is for D&D.
That sounds about right. It came out in the 70s.
Yeah, yep. So
74.
a bunch of the stuff that they're coming out with is very it's all 50th anniversary branded and celebratory of. So it seems like these ones are reworkings for the new, the way, D&D, I guess, is what's going to be 5.5 or something, maybe.
Yeah, I remember the Infinite Staircase from years ago, and I might still have it somewhere. And as I've shared, I'm creating a campaign world that's based in part on Planescape and Spelljammer and the Immortal set that they had back with the original D&D. So yeah, I'd be very interested in that, and I could easily incorporate it into my campaign.
Have you run any of those ones, or are you familiar with any of them?
I don't remember the exact stories, but they had very similar, they've done the same thing with portals and they've done the same thing with other like gimmicks. But the infinite staircase goes to different worlds. And like, you can go to one world, open the door and you're in a closet. In another world, you're in a forest clearing behind some bushes. But usually it connects to a door someplace. But the doors are separated with space and time, and if memory serves, they had different types of adventures that were very loosely connected so that you could play them each individually and put them in your campaign. Or if you wanted to make it a campaign, you could, pretty much use all the ones in the Infinite Staircase module to run for your players. I would just
Right. Yeah.
get in there occasionally as a change of pace. And if they liked it, then they could find it and use it whenever they wanted to and have different types of adventures.
Yeah, it seems skimming through the quests that are in it, it seems to be pretty diverse and different, pretty different areas that you go to in the thing. So yeah, I guess it still tracks.
Yeah, I'm glad they're coming out with the old stuff. I'm glad they're modernizing it, because it's the game has changed, the culture has changed around the game, so it's good that we have a fresh take on a lot of these old modules. But they were classics, and it's fun to revisit them.
All right, yeah, and I'm sure it helps with some quality of life updates and stuff like that compared to the older stuff. I mean, this depends on who you ask, of course, but
And now, again, with the digital revolution, a lot of the original stuff is available at affordable prices. It's printed on demand.
mm.
So you can actually track down these modules that used to go for hundreds of dollars and used to take months to find. And then the condition wasn't always guaranteed, and the
Yeah.
map would be missing, or the character cardboards would be missing, or something would be missing. So now you can get the whole thing and they'll print it in a book and you'll have it in a very short period of time.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Have you heard anything about the new players' handbooks or anything either?
No, I stopped following it because I got very busy with my programs, but I was following it for a while and it seemed like they were going to come out with a D&D 5.5 or D&D 6.0, and people were up in arms and they're complaining, and other people were saying it's a good thing, it's an evolution, and other people were saying it's just an excuse to take more money from us because you'll get material. I heard that they play tested very extensively, and they made a lot of interesting changes to the game. but that's when I stopped following it. So I don't know any specifics. Have you heard anything?
Mm. No, no, that's what I'm curious. That's what the thing that I'm reading real quick is that it's saying that it will not be considered like a 5.5 kind of edition. People online are now referring it to as like a 5.1 kind of thing. Um, but it seems a bunch of updates to classes and races and spells and combat, so it seems to be a whole bunch of updates and stuff like you were saying.
Yeah, I think it's wise if they just like publish updates, and this way they can keep the whatever edition of the game that you have. You could continue playing it, but then there's updates of rules that you can incorporate into your campaign or to tweak what you're already doing, and then they could have the new rules be the set that people use for tournaments. I don't know if they're still doing D&D tournaments, but they did once upon a time. And that could be where you need the up-to-date official rules, to play. Because most people I know over the years homebrew anyway. So they'll take
Right.
here, take something from there. It's like, there's too much work. Some people like attention. I remember there was a game called Ice that you could determine how much your shoe leather was worn during each adventure, and you'd have to monitor that or buy shoes. Yeah, so some people like the complexity. Some people don't. I happen to just like a simple game. You roll the dice. It'll tell you if something happened or didn't happen, and to the extent to which it happened or didn't happen, and move on with the story. But some people like the complications. People like rolling dice. They like having dice with of different types. So whatever type of DM you are, you run the games in that way.
Yeah, that's why I really like the one shots that, or the one shots that Zack runs, and it's just you're there for the story, and it's not super rules heavy. You're just there for the good time. I'm not a big rules stickler. I just want to I just want to have a cool story and a cool experience.
Yeah, I'm the same way, and just have fun. And when I run into kids that have been in my, or adults even that have been in my games, they seem to remember them fondly years later, and they get this like faraway look in their eyes, like they recall something that happened to them in the waking world, in the physical world. It's all an imagination trip, and that's a great thing. That's very satisfying to experience that as a storyteller. That people really got something out of the stories that you're telling with them.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's probably very satisfying to get that as a storyteller.
The bad thing about being a storyteller or game master or dungeon master is you hardly ever get the chance to play. I
To
think
play. Yeah.
in all my years
Yeah.
since the 70s, I've only played as a player 3 times. So I get to live
Well,
through NPCs, and
I gotta run one so that you and Zach can both play.
There you go.
that would be awesome.
I gotta do the ghost ship one, the one that I keep talking about.
Like
Ice
it's
Fleet.
Halloween.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe that's maybe that'll be the goal. Yeah. Okay. Let's set it in stone. There you go.
So it sounds awesome.
It-
Halloween's my anniversary. I got married on Halloween's.
Oh,
So
that's
Perfect.
awesome.
I need to see when I think I planned something for our anniversary, and but I'm definitely interested. So keep me posted on that.
Awesome. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The book is super cool. We've talked about it a million times, but yeah, I'm excited for that one.
Now, I have a quick question to ask you before we transfer over to Zach. Are you still looking for games and movies and things like that?
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep. We're looking for stuff all the time.
Okay, because we used to have a store called the Barbarian Bazaar in
Right.
Pennsylvania. So now it's become clear we're in our late 60s that we're not going to open up a store ever. So I have tons and tons of games and of all types, every role-playing games, board games, video games, all sorts of games. So what I'll do is, and this way it'll give me a chance to see you more often. I'll gather things together so that when we're in northwestern New Jersey, I have what do you call it, a specific reason to stop by
Yeah.
beyond saying hello and seeing how you guys are. So this
Right.
way we get prioritized in our scheduling. So I will start doing that for this next couple of weeks.
Yeah, perfect. Yep, that sounds good. And then yeah, definitely bring what you have by, and then if it's stuff that 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 we don't deal with, I know a million people that would be that I can send you to that would take care of you for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that greatly. Before we move to Zach, is there anything else new and exciting on the horizon at Level 1 Games?
Yeah, like I was saying, it was just the two big tournaments that we're doing. We got the big Pokemon League Cup that we're doing August 3rd, and then the big new Magic Bloomborough set that comes out at the end of the month. I forget. I think it's the last weekend in July. I forget. I'm getting my dates mixed up. But yeah, those are the two big things going on, as well as the new fancy kiosk that you can browse our Magic inventory in. So yeah, we got a bunch of stuff going on, and always follow us on Facebook and on Instagram and everything. But yeah, whenever we get new stuff and all the tournaments and everything get posted up online as well.
When you have your show, please feel free to advertise on my pages. I have like 1,400 on one page and around 4,000 something on another page. And many of those people are local.
Right.
So please feel free
Yeah.
in promo
Excellent.
to put links to whatever you'd like to put links to.
Awesome. Yeah. Facebook makes it super easy to post stuff. So yeah, that's just one click. So excellent. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for a wonderful segment and a delightful and informative segment. And now we go to the Legend of the Five Rings, 5th edition, with Zack McAtee. Yay!
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I figured it would be a good place to start, maybe just going into how a system works that I've been gaining experience with. So I've mentioned a couple times over the past few podcasts that I have been preparing for and then started to run a campaign of Legend of the Five Rings. So for those who are not aware of what it is, Legend of the Five Rings is effectively Eastern D&D as far as the setting. We always have that image in our heads for D&D of like knights, of feudal kingdoms, things of that nature. This is a version set in a world that is based off of both Japan as well as a myriad mix of other Asian cultures. So geographically, it's actually closest to the eastern coast of China, as it's more of a solid landmass than a series of islands. But culturally, most of it comes from Japanese folklore, myth, and the old samurai dramas of old. So a lot of that inspiration is from classic samurai movies, Seven Samurai, 47 Ronin, pretty much anything by Kurosawa, by all these popular touchstones. And the game has been around since I think it was the mid 80s, earlier mid 80s in some form, because
Wow.
it started as a card game. And Tim, I don't know if I've gotten into this with you before, but this is it's interesting how it started, because not only was it a card game, but what they did is they kept records of every single tournament that happened in any official capacity, not just big tournaments such as like, oh, this is a states, this is a regionals, this is nationals, every single tournament. And they would use all of that data to then influence the next set of cards. So if at the end of, let's say, like it's arc 3, at the end of arc 3, if it turns out that most players who are winning these tournaments are using a deck from a specific clan, then the next set will kind of have story and lore related to that clan. And so because they did it that way and made it so that the audience helped craft the story, people got very invested into it. There are stories of people would like make like 10-foot tall banners, like flags, to bring to tournaments to represent their clan. People would, like from across the country, this was again back like before cell phones were really a thing, when like pagers were like the hot new thing. They were like reaching out to each other and saying, hey, we're having a big clan meet. We're all going to meet up here and test our decks against each other so that we can then go play against the other people in the tournament. Like, we're going to prep strategy so that if any of us wins, this is what we want to happen in the story for our people, like that kind of thing. And so because people got so invested in it, and it was already, I would say, borderline into role-playing because of that aspect, they did make the transition to having a tabletop RPG as well. So I have not played editions 1 through 4. 4th edition is actually one of the first RPGs that I attempted to read and like learn how to run, which is kind of what brought me circling back to 5th edition now that I have more experience as a DM and have been DMing at this point for, almost 2 decades. So this edition is a bit streamlined mechanically, I think is a good way to describe it. And it has a much more narrative focus, both in the actual rules as well as in the dice. So it does use proprietary dice with 4 unique symbols. There is a circle, which just means it's a success. There is a kind of exploding, like, fireball circle, which Hercules, I'm sure you're familiar with the term exploding dice. So it's a success, but it then lets you roll another of that die type. There is a cherry blossom leaf, which is stripe. And then there is a kind of firework looking symbol that's known as opportunity. So the whole core engine of the game is that using those 4 symbols on your roll dice, you will interpret if you succeed or fail on things and what consequences happen as a result. So, for instance, if we're doing a very basic roll, an average roll, the DM always tells you what you're trying to get as far as a number of successes. It's called a target number in the system. A lot of other systems use that terminology as well. So 2 is the average target number for a very, very run-of-the-mill activity. So you would say, oh, I want to attempt this. The DM would say TM2. You would roll dice, and then you want to get at least 2 success symbols. The problem is that the dice faces are not just a single symbol. They're usually a combination of 2 different ones. So you have a lot of situations where, oh, I have these 2 successes, but the 2 successes also have these other symbols on them that I may or may not want, but if I want to succeed, I have to take them. So it gives you that nice, like, balancing act of like, oh, how bad do I want to succeed versus how bad do I want to avoid a negative repercussion for this. So to start from the core of a character, so as the name implies, Legend of the 5 Rings, there are 5 rings. This is, of course, based off of the Book of 5 Rings in real life. And this is kind of a more, I guess, spiritual bent on it. So the 5 rings, air, earth, fire, water, and void, are all integral parts of your character's personality. So it's less about individual stats like strength, dexterity, constitution, things of that nature. And these are more your character's propensity to act in a certain way. So if your character is, for instance, high in the fire ring, that means that they're more likely to react to things, passion, to be inventive in the ways they approach things, to perhaps be ferocious or aggressive, versus if they were perhaps high in the earth ring, they're more known for being patient, calm, and trying to maybe wait things out or think of a way to outlast something. So when you're creating your character, you end up having values between 1 and 3 for each of the 5 rings. 3 is a little better than human average, so usually that's kind of what your character's more known for personality-wise. So, for example, Jamie's character has a higher fire ring, and she is the one who, again, she'll cross social norms. She will call people out on things. She'll perhaps say things she shouldn't and get the group in trouble because she, like, acts in that aggressive kind of improvisational manner. But you eventually can raise them up as you play and cap them each at 5 at maximum. So as a brief summary of what each ring is, air is generally associated with being subtle, being cunning, being precise. Earth, as I mentioned, is patience, trying to recall things, memory, history, calmness. Fire is, again, passion, inventiveness, ferocity. Water is all about being flexible, being charming, trying to be aware of what's around you. And then void is almost like a Zen sense. It's how in touch you are with the mystic world, maybe your gut instincts, reactions to things, wisdom, things of that nature. So whenever you would make a roll, instead of picking a stat, instead of saying, oh, okay, I am trying to break this door down, and then the DM says roll strength. As opposed to that, in this system, depending on how you want to break the door down, you will be rolling with a different thing. So if you say, perhaps, I want to kick the door down, that is a very aggressive, reactionary thing. That sounds like it's a fire ring activity. But instead, if you were to say, I want to see if I can recall, like, is there a weak point on this door? Like, do I recognize the person who maybe made the door, and things of that nature, to find a way to break it without making a lot of noise? That would be an earth test to do the same thing, but from a different tact. So coinciding with the rings, every character also has skills, which work very similarly to how they do in most other games. In this case, whenever you're attempting to make a roll, usually it will be consulting a ring and a skill. So the most common example is in combat, you will make martial arts checks using either unarmed, melee, or ranged, based off of whatever weapon you're wielding. So the TN for a basic strike in combat is a default of 2. So you would say, oh, okay, I'm going to be in fire stance, which in combat means, again, you're being more aggressive. It lets you get extra successes at the cost of taking some emotional damage yourself. But you might say, I'm in fire stance. I want to fire my bow at the target. So then, without needing to consult the DM, because it's the same basic TN as normal, you would say, okay, I'm going to gather D6s equal to the ring I'm currently using. So let's say in this instance, you had a ring of 3 for fire. You would take 3 D6. Then you would consult the matching skill, in this case, martial arts ranged, and we'd say maybe you have 2 points in that. So you would take 2 D12 for the skill points you have in that, and roll all of those dice. After rolling them, you then can only keep a number of dice equal to your ring. So despite the fact that I just got to roll 5 dice, I can only keep and resolve 3 of them. So again, you have that kind of balancing act where now you have more options than you can take, and you have to decide what's the best way to move forward with these. Explosive successes only count if you keep them, but maybe the die that has an explosive success also has a stripe symbol on it. So you have to decide how far am I willing to push my character to hopefully get more successes for this. After keeping them, you would then tally up the symbols, work with the DM to establish what happens as a result. And this is where the other 2 symbols that I didn't go into come into play. So we have opportunity and strike. So unlike a lot of games, Legends of the Five Rings has effectively a mental health stat, similar to how Call of Cthulhu has like a sanity tracking stat. In this case, as opposed to how sane you are, it's more how calm you are. It's called composure. The idea is that in the rigid feudal state of this samurai setting, it is very improper to give into your emotions in public, to have outbursts or strong reactions to things. So composure is a measure of how long you can not react to things. So perhaps someone is constantly just needling you and insulting you over and over. Composure is basically how long you can last with them doing that before your character would lash out in response. The problem with that is that strife is gained both from the dice that have the stripe symbol as well as during narrative play. So when you're making a character, you have a disadvantage, you have an anxiety, you have these various negative traits that can cause you to take strife. So, for example, one of my players has an anxiety for being unclean. So they were attacked by wolves recently, and although she was not overly hurt, one of the wolves had landed a solid blow and had torn open one of her sleeves, had gotten blood and saliva all over her. And so she took strife, she took emotional damage. And as opposed to continuing to explore with the other characters, reasoned my character would not be comfortable with this. She's going to leave. She's going to go back to the village and clean and rest for the next day's activities because this is too much for her. So strife can kind of, it gives you good narrative outlets by forcing you into making tough decisions. They have a list of ways that you can, as they say, unmask, which is when you are at your composure in strife and you need to lower it. So you might have an angry outburst, you might challenge someone to a duel, you might flee in terror, and all of these things will have negative social repercussions.
Wow.
So
There's a lot that you're considering there, and the complexity is amazing in the subtleness of each of your moves.
it does a very good job, I think, of helping guide you being in character, because it has that kind of baked in, okay, so my character is maybe 2 points away from having their composure maxed out, so they recommend when you make a character, come up with a tell, like a physical tell that is a little narrative detail of like they're getting close to losing it. So like maybe it's like, oh, they twitch the fingers on their sword hand whenever they're getting close to losing their composure, kind of thing. And it really guides you into leaning into the character aspect of it. And so strife sounds bad. I know it probably sounds terrible the way I'm describing it, but it is a necessary consequence of a lot of actions. And in certain situations, unmasking can actually be the best possible thing for you, depending on who you're interacting with and what methods they've been using against you. So I do like that they made sure it is not just a negative thing. It's a stat to keep track of, like health, same thing. It just gives you different benefits and disadvantages. The fourth symbol on the die, opportunity. So opportunity is by nature extremely vague. They have a few charts in the books of recommended uses for, say, in combat, in an intrigue, in this type of setting with this type of people, if you're using magic, if you're doing this. But really, they straight up say in the book, opportunity is something to discuss with the DM, and if they think it works, it works. The one core line of an opportunity is it can never change a failure into a success. So you can never say, oh, I only got one of my 2 successes, but I have 3 opportunity. Can I spend that as a success? You can never do that. What you can do is use the opportunities to add details to the result of your roll, whether it was successful or not. So you might say, okay, I just made a roll in the air stance. I was trying to convince someone of something. So I used sentiment is the closest thing they have to like a diplomacy type check. And so maybe I failed my sentiment check, but I had 2 opportunities. So I can look at the list of here's opportunity uses for being in the air stance. And maybe one of them says, find the easiest way to achieve the goal you just failed at. Or it might say, spend an opportunity to learn a disadvantage of the character you're talking to. So there are ways that you can still get a result out of a failed roll without hand waving and saying, oh, okay, whatever, it's a success. Nothing bad happened. So it's a nice way to kind of sweeten, to add sugar to the salt, I suppose, is a good way to put it. But then also, if you have a successful roll, you can still enhance them with opportunities to get an even better roll. So a lot of spells, which are called invocations in the system, will typically say, okay, here is what the spell does when you succeed, and then here are extra opportunities for casting this spell. where, okay, maybe you can spend an opportunity to make it target another character, or you can spend opportunity to make it last longer, to, affect a wider area, to maybe, if you speak with the spirits, and this just happened in my, not my last session, but the one before. It's like you get to commune with the spirits of one of the 5 rings, and then opportunities do things like say, okay, if you spend an opportunity, they will give you a gift of something associated with their ring. Or if you spend an opportunity, they will give you a piece of information that they would have, the other spirits may not have. And so there are always these ways to enhance even a successful roll as well. So that's the 4 symbols. That's the 5 core stats, and then the skills. Derived stats are fairly simple. There's only 4 of them. It's composure, as I talked about, is your measure of your mental fortitude. Endurance is your physical health. So they make a point of saying that taking damage in this system, as in taking damage points, does not mean, oh, I just suffered a wound. They call it exhaustion. And so the idea is you're swinging at each other, you're both getting fatigued, and then when one of you has gotten so fatigued they are having difficulty fighting, when your endurance is maxed out, that's when you can start taking actual wounds and life-threatening injuries. So
it's interesting.
And then they have a whole list of injuries that depend on what ring you were in. Then they give you choices of like, oh, if it's air, for example, and you suffer a really bad one, it might say choose, like, you lose an eye, you lose an ear. Like they give you these options of these are permanent things that happen to your character that can never be undone if you get hurt that badly. One of my players ended up taking a shuriken to the face, as one does, and it did not go very well for them. So they had they suffered a critical strike that was particularly bad. You can always roll to like lower the strength of one, but with a high enough number, there's only so much you can do as far as rolling to reduce it. And so she ended up picking, now she has a maimed visage. So from where the shuriken hit her and like the poison was in her skin, that area of her face is now, it's like very dry, it's cracked, it's very like red and inflamed. And so permanently now she has this. And that is a disadvantage. But then discussing with me, they swapped one of their existing advantages for I think they called it a daring look, something of that nature. And the idea is in certain company, the scar makes it very difficult to have positive social interactions because you're supposed to be this noble, highborn person, and you have this very visible wound on your face, always visible. But with the advantage that they have now in rougher company, so if they were to say, go into a gambling den, that scar can now be levied to intimidate people, to impress people as kind of a battle scar. I survived this and I'm still here kind of thing. So the critical strikes, although they are technically a very negative thing as far as a wound or an injury, they can add positive things and flavor to your character. Obviously, you don't want to get too many of them because that will end pretty badly pretty quickly. And if you do suffer a high enough critical strike, it can just instantly kill you. But that's unlikely to happen unless you're really in over your head, or someone like coup de grace you, like you're unconscious. But typically, that's very hard to achieve in a standard game. But so I think I've been talking about it a lot for the past few minutes. So is there anything either of you would like to ask me about the system?
Tim?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is there the strife mechanic, is there a way to like rest and recover the strife, or is it I don't want to say like permanent debuff, but
so strife recovers in a multitude of ways. The most common is that at the end of every scene, and a scene could be a combat, it could be this like one social encounter, it could be a travel from one town to another. At the end of any scene, you reduce both your fatigue and your strife down to about half. So there's a natural at the end of the scene, you recover a little bit. During scenes, there are some actions they call calming breath, where you can basically, my character's taking a step back and just giving themselves a beat to kind of recover. And like that will help lower it during a scene, during some action. Certain stances. I mentioned the opportunity that you can spend. So a lot of the times my players in combat, when they use water stance, they'll say that most commonly used opportunity is reduce my strike by 2. So they're like, all right, good, I hit the guy. I'm going to spend opportunity to lower my strike. And it's like narratively, they're working out that emotional distress in a physical
right.
Additionally, the counterpoint to the anxieties I mentioned earlier are, here are the exact name for this, but it's a hobby. It's something you love, something you like to do. So the one character in my last session, the one they have for that is like physical labor. Is just mindless, like tilling the soil, moving the bricks, that kind of stuff. And they were transporting a cart of barrels of water from one village to another. And that qualifies. So whenever you partake in one of those things, you automatically lower your strike by 3. Additionally, when you unmask, which I mentioned before is like having the outbursts, your strike goes back to 0. So you can choose to say, all right, rather than sit here and hope I can lower it some other way, my character's having an outburst. I'm doing it. But then I go back to 0. So then I'm fresh for the rest of the scene, So you can kind of choose that.
Right. Okay. And then the other thing that I was going to ask was, have you ever played Sekiro, the video game?
I've watched a couple like playthroughs of the boss fights, but I don't have a PlayStation. Whichever one it's on, my laptop is not that great. So
Yeah, the way you're describing the combat reminds me of that, because like Sekiro, like you have to be in like your concentrated stance, if you will. And then like they'll break your concentration, and then as soon as they do, that's when they can do damage and stuff.
Yep.
It's it's made by the Dark Souls guys. So I bought it for my computer, and I played for like a couple hours, and I was like, oh nope, I'm good.
I've heard it's like one of their best ones. I want to play it at some point.
Yeah. Like it's super good. Of course the combat feels great and stuff, but the same way that I don't want to be super rulesy when I play my my RPGs, I don't want to be punished playing my video games too much.
Yep.
But it was really good, but yeah, just a little bit too much for me.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's a different way of doing things. So you have to exercise your mind in a different way. And that's one of the virtues, as far as I can see, of playing role-playing games, in that you're confronting situations that you're not likely to confront in waking reality. And maybe in dreams or in imaginary journeys or astral projections, you get to do some of this stuff. But in ordinary waking reality, you usually don't. And part of having a flexible mind and being open to possibilities is being able to see things in a new way, not to get stuck in thinking patterns. And this forces you to think differently and to make decisions based on different criteria. So I'm amazed. I was trying to visualize some of the steps and ask myself what I would do. I don't know enough about the rules to determine what I would do, but it sounded incredibly awesome. Thank you for describing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the strife mechanic seems really cool and really good. Like you were saying, for storytelling, you can use it. Use it in the story to help. I can picture carrying the water jugs. Like, oh well, we're going to the next town anyway to go do this. Like, let me reduce my strife. Let me carry this for this person, or for that instance. But
yeah,
a lot of good role playing and good brain imagery.
And they have some really fun ones too, where like, you can have a passion for like secrets, and so you can reduce strife by either sharing your own secrets or finding out other people's secrets, or you know, or maybe you really like insults. Like that's legitimately one of them. Is in the culture, there's a game where people take turns insulting each other back and forth until one of them like bows out, is like, oh, I can't think of anything good anymore. And so like that could be one of your passions. So if you just start making fun of another character, that could help lower your strife.
Now, Zach, are you going to continue our education of this particular system in subsequent shows, or will you be picking different systems in each show?
I think I'd focus on this one for a little bit and hopefully segue to kind of giving an example of like at least probably the first arc of my campaign. We're in probably the end of arc 2 right now. But I thought give you some groundwork, give you some information about the setting and the mechanics. So next time I was hoping to discuss more of the lore aspect as opposed to the mechanical aspect.
Nice.
I'm looking forward to that. And we only have a few more minutes left. So we'll start with Zach. How can people contact you? How can they find you? How can they enter your worlds?
So you can always find me on Facebook, or you can send me an email at mrmunnin@gmail.com.
Thank you very much. And Tim, how can people find you and Level 1 Games and enter all these wonderful tournaments and check out all the wonderful merchandise you have and check out that robot that you have?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so you can swing by the store. We're right on Route 23, right by the like Pumpkin Queen Diner and the Stop and Shop and stuff, if people are familiar with the area. But online, we're Level 1 Games. You can just type that in on Facebook and on Instagram. Like I was saying before, we post all of our happenings and goings-ons and trade-ins and everything on there. You can also the kiosk is available at home too. It's Level 1 Game Store at tcgplayerpro.com. But it's a lot to type out, but it's posted online and everything, or to spell out, but it's posted online and everything. But yeah, so best way, send us a message, and if you have any questions, yeah, just let us know.
Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you very much, Zach, for an informative and fun show. It worked very well on Zoom, so now automatically when BTR has a glitch, we'll just do this in 2 minutes. So I'm very glad that everything worked out smoothly. And to those at home, thank you for joining us. This will be on YouTube tomorrow. And until next time, we wish you joyous journeys and amazing adventures, be they in real life or in some gaming platform. Thank you very much again, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you so much. Good talking to you. Hopefully I'll see you soon.
I hope so too.
Thank you.
Thank you.